It allows the inner critic to silence itself, or at least stop yelling. And it allows me to move forward playfully and joyfully. And what I've learned about my own artistic experience is when I imbue anything I create handmade with enthusiasm, joy, and love, the people who are meant to receive it and feel it the way I intended it to be.
Hello, I'm Tamara Honaman, a maker, digital content creator, someone who works in many different mediums with a true passion for helping others find their creative spark. I also really love to connect others who have something to share with those who want to learn. Welcome to Heart and Hands of a Maker, the creative journey. If you found us, chances are you're on a quest for creative inspiration. Maybe you're feeling stuck in an artistic rut, dreaming of turning your passion into a flourishing business, or maybe you're hoping to see your work in print or grow your online presence. Well, my friend, wherever you are on your creative journey, you're in the right place. Today, we're talking with Jen Cushman, the creative spirit at Solstor Magic. Jen is a mixed media artist and has been teaching art for over 25 years. We'll be discussing her creative journey, explore her business evolution, and dig deeper into her practices of art and spirit. It's time to grab your favorite beverage, settle into your creative space, and meet Jen. Jen, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tammy. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's our pleasure to have you and to have this special time with you. So thank you. So that all of you know, Jen and I have enjoyed getting to know each other for many, 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 many years. We've crossed paths and been in the same circles for, gosh, I know I keep saying I date myself, 25 years at least.
25 years for sure, girlfriend.
But we still look 25.
I'm reverse aging. That's what I decided.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And it's been really wonderful for me to know Jen, to see her family grow and all of the life experiences that she's gone through. I've also learned a lot from Jen, and I'm really excited to have her here today so she can share with you some of her evolution and her journey. So Jen, please, why don't you just take it away and give everybody kind of a little bit more flavor for who you are, where you've been, and we'll get to where you're headed.
Okay. I love this one. It's so funny when you do that. It's always like, well, I was born, right? And it's like, we're not going to start with the I was born. But I do want to take you just a little bit back, just to tell you a little bit about who I am. And in order for, I think, all of us to know who we are, we do need to know where we came from. And so I am going to take you back to those early days really quick. And the thing I think that's important about my story is that I was, my brother and sister were 15 and 17 years older than me. My mom and dad were older when they had me, the same way I was older when I had my daughter. So my mother was 40 when she had me. My brother ended up leaving the house. He was 17. He left when he was 18. My sister was out of the house by the time I was 4. So I wasn't raised with a lot of siblings, right? My dad worked nights and slept during the day. So that meant it was me and my mom at home, and we were pretty quiet in our house. So luckily I was a creative child, and I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of, just playing make-believe. My mother had a huge thing of junk jewelry. So she would go to garage sales and she would buy like this costume jewelry. And she gave me some jewelry tools when I was little. And I just kind of would take things apart and put them back together. And, she got those frilly, 90s that they used to have, where they would have the sheer 90s with the little feathers on the sleeves and all that other kind of stuff. So I got to play dress up as a kid. I read a lot. I did books. I did art. I did those kind of things. Now, my mother didn't have a creative bone in her body. And we did not have a lot of cash and a lot of money. And yet she made sure that she supported my creative hobbies and my creative habits. So the other thing that I think is important to tell you is that I was also born into this world as a sensitive. So I was just a very sensitive child. I knew things as a child that I don't know how I knew them. I've come to learn and know that it's called claircognizance. It's actually called clear knowing. And I also sensed and felt everything. I felt everybody's emotions. I felt everything, which I have come to learn is called clairsentience. It's clear feeling. And so as a child, I just would know things that I don't know how I knew it. And it would freak people. It would freak the adults out when I would just say something. So it would freak them out. And, my mom and dad, it would stop. Their friends, it would stop. And one of the things that would happen is because other people would get freaked out, my mother would say to me, "Oh my goodness, you have such a great imagination. You have such an active imagination. You're such a great artist." And so I think what happened for me is that these sensitivities that I had, these empathic, intuitive abilities that I just naturally came into the world with, got channeled into art because that was the more acceptable way to channel this information that a lot of people, even to this day, still doesn't understand or know what it's about. So when we're going to talk about art plus spirit, but I wanted to give you the background of why art plus spirit exist in my life and how the two of them are so interwoven and so combined that I don't know where art begins and spirit ends, or where spirit begins and art ends. So that's a little bit about my early humble beginnings.
Yes. Well, and it sounds humble, but it sounds like you were empowered to be creative, where I feel so many other people we've had on the show and just people whose paths I cross, if you couldn't draw, then you were not an artist, and therefore you
Correct.
should not be doing anything, or just go play with crayons. Like so it's wonderful that your mother supported that and she recognized it and that she encouraged you and empowered you with whatever means she had to be creative, and that you at least had an outlet. How many people are, shut down completely, and that's a whole nother situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm glad.
And they were wonderful. My mom was really wonderful during my early years of doing that. Now I have to tell you where my story becomes very similar to other artists is when I got to high school, when it came time to having a career, right? Quote unquote career. So I was very much told, like I remember saying that it was fine. My whole entire life, I was called an artist, which was great, or a writer, because I would write and illustrate my own books. I was a prolific reader. I didn't watch a lot of TV, played with jewelry, took jewelry apart. Like I did that as a child all the time. And when it got to high school and it was time to pick your career, I said to my mom and my dad, "I want to be an artist." And they were like, "No, you can't be an artist. There's no money in being an artist. You can't that's not a real job." And then I was like, "Great, I'll be a writer." And they were like, "Nope, that's just like being an artist. There's no money in that as a real job." So luckily I became the default. By default, I became the editor of my school newspaper, and I was really very good at it, and just naturally good at it. And so I said to my parents, "Okay, I'm going to become a journalist." And they were like, "Bingo, you can go to college now and you can become a journalist, because that's a profession." So that's actually how I got my degree in journalism. I got my minor in psychology because one of the things that happened for me is that feeling very different and being this very intuitive, sensitive kid, I really, and knowing things that I wasn't supposed to know, I really was on a search my whole entire life to figure out who am I and why am I so different, and how do I know these things, right? How do I know it? Like, what am I? So we all have that big existential question in our life, like, what is my purpose? Who am I here? All of those things. I had an even deeper one, which is like, what am I? Like, am I a zebra? Am I a giraffe? Or am I stripes and spots all together? Like, am I a completely unique individual? So I didn't really know in terms of that. So I did go to college. I had gotten a tiny little bit of money from my grandmother when she passed away when I was little, and it grew into enough for me to be able to go to college on from my,
Wow.
state college. And I went and I got my degree in journalism, and I got my minor in sociology and psychology. So for me, it has always been the study of the human mind, the study of people, the study of personalities, along with the creative aspect, because I truly believe that every single one of us are creative. And I truly believe that every single one of us are naturally intuitive. It's just, is it accepted? Is it developed? So I don't think I have gifts. I have come now in my lifetime. I don't think I have any gifts that the rest of us don't have. I just think that mine happen to be a little bit more enhanced, maybe a little bit more prominent. And because of them being a little bit more prominent, I got curious to figure out who I was. And then I developed the skills of intuition the same way I developed the skills of jewelry and paint and mixed media and all of those other things. So I started studying metaphysics in my 20s, and I was, presenting as an artist, and all of my free time was studying metaphysics. So literally my whole life has been art plus spirit. And the one thing I have learned is that I am an empath. That means that I feel all the emotions. I feel all the feels, not just my own, but everybody else's. And that was a big revelation for me. And I didn't actually learn I was an empath until I was in my 40s, so that was pretty amazing. And what I've come to learn through scientific research is empaths, our nervous system is wired differently than the rest of the other people's nervous system. It's anywhere between 12 and 18% of the population. And here's what I've come to find out from all the shows, Tammy, and all the years that we've done. I would say that in our creative community, it is probably 90 to 93% of the people are highly sensitive and empaths in the creative community. Those of us who are feelers, my group, my people are the creatives, the healers, and the feelers. Those of us who are creatives, healers, and feelers, we just naturally go to the arts because it is the best strategy for us to explore who we are and allow our beautiful brains and our beautiful nervous systems to flourish and thrive.
That makes so much sense. It really does. And I think it took me until I was in my 50s to realize that I was an empath, because probably just didn't really slow down long enough to understand what that actually was. But I am. I'm proud to declare it.
I know. And I think more of us that can do that. You know what I mean? I tell people and I'm like, okay, I finally came out. I'm really, really out. I am a woo. Like I am about as woo as you can get. And yet I have to tell you, I am probably the most practical woo you have ever met in your life. Like, I'm not out in some galactic federation of the eighth ray of the seventh dynasty of I don't go there, and I'm like, but I do have spirit guides. I do have angels. I do have an intuitive sense. I do have a higher self that is very, very well developed, so I admit to all those things. And part of my path and my purpose right now is really to reach my creatives, my healers, and my feelers, and really tell everybody that, being a sensitive, being an empath, being this way, being able to feel so deeply and to so easily touch into that higher plane of that quantum field of imagination and creativity, it is a superpower. And it is the creative healers and feelers are who is going to be so important in the world as we go on, particularly with AI, particularly with these things that are going to be happening, right? Because there still needs to be the human soul, the human heart, and the human hands in order to tell where this stuff is going to go. So I think that this is really the time that we must be empowered, and we really must say, I'm an empath, I'm a sensitive, I'm an intuitive, I'm an artist. You know what I mean? I love taking old doll heads and gluing them onto bottles, you know what I mean? Or whatever it is you do. I think that this is our time to shine. And part of my mission and my path is by me just being me and just being brave enough to be out and open. Hopefully my light can show other people to shine their light. And then hopefully our lights together will create a network and a circuit for us to all become the creative, intuitive human beings that we're meant to be.
Well, my hand is outreach to you to be a part of that connection and that circle whenever it's the right time. But I want to add that I feel you, through all of the years we've known each other, your balance of business and intellect and creativity has been something that's always drawn me to you, because you do have that ability to create beautiful art, and you marry that with a way of communicating that doesn't make people uncomfortable, because you speak their language as well. And I was raised very practically. There was a lot of creativity happening, but it was not art. And it was definitely not a place where you would go to have a job similar to what you faced. And I've always been in more of a business capacity with an art on the side to be a part of what it is that I do in the business. But it's not practical to be in the whatever galaxy you mentioned, because it's like, and that's like not even anything I know anything about.
Right.
And so you've been able to contain it in a way that makes it approachable, and for people like me to feel comfortable where I don't naturally fit because it's not a
Mhm.
part of who I am. So I want to thank you for that. You have a beautiful gift. In addition to your true gifts, you have a natural gift for blending all of your education and all of the things that you've experienced and your business sense. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, when we became better connected, you were in the middle of all of the business stuff you were going through, as well
Yeah,
as creating
correct.
and still putting art out there, and then able to understand all the nuances of marketing. I mean,
Yeah.
you're like the whole package. Your husband's a very lucky man.
Thank you for that. You know, the business, it's interesting. The business stuff, I don't have a business degree. That's like literally learned on the fly. You know, my journalism degree is communicative degree. So that's what allows, the journalism degree is really what allowed me to learn to effectively communicate and to listen. So that was the really good part. And I love telling stories. Like, you know, again, I grew up, if I could have been a writer writing fantastical stories, that would have been my choice. It wasn't what I was allowed to be channeled into. So I naturally got channeled into telling other people's stories, listening to them and telling stories. So I love being a storyteller. That was huge for me. When I started writing for the magazines and the publications, I had been writing I had been a freelance writer, writing for a lot of publications, started writing for, you know, our magazines, the Somerset, the Cloth, Paper, Scissors. You know, I was actually writing competing magazines at one time, which really is not allowed in our industry. You're supposed to pick one and go for another. And I would have the editors say, well, you're going to have to quit that magazine to write for this magazine. And I'd be like, no, I'm not quitting. And I'm like, I'm not going to choose one or the other. And they're like, well, how am I going to make sure I get the best of you and they get the best of you? And I'm like, trust me, this is not my first rodeo. I can write for you and I can write for you and I can write totally different things and I can serve you well. And that was just because I was confident in my abilities to be able to do that. So confidence was a key there. Now, in my art writing, I wasn't quite as confident. You know what I mean? I'm not my art writing, but my art, my making of my art. Words came naturally to me. Art was something I've had to really learn. So art's been a passion. Words have been a natural talent. Intuition's been a natural talent. And, you know, and so I started doing publications, I started writing, and then I really thought I was going to put the whole writing on the shelf. And when I started writing, because I was writing for Mary Englebright's Home Companion, a lot of the national magazines and stuff too. And when I thought I wanted to start writing about my own art, I thought, well, or actually I just wanted to start doing my own art. I found out from the publications that my writing skills actually came into play. So I was able to easily people are like, well, how did you write all those articles? How did you write all that magazine? They're like, every time they picked up, you know, our jewelry, our product, our resin, our stuff was in every publication and every magazine. And I'm like, well, it's because I had the writing skills that allowed the art to come in. So the communication has always been first. So
Sure.
that was a long way of saying thank you for that. And I hear you. I recognize that. And that's how that came about. And then business, I literally learned on the fly. And I learned it because we had a product and we taught the product. And so there was a product and I taught the product. And what I really found out is I had much more of a passion for teaching than I actually did for the product. So I love the products. I love the manufacturers. I loved working with them. And where I really got the juice was teaching these skills and techniques to other, you know, mostly women. I did when I was doing my metalsmithing class, I'd get men in there because they liked fire and hammers, but you know, the beading and the resin was pretty much all women. But I loved it. I loved teaching and sharing. And so I had a really successful 25-year career teaching. And then the business kind of went with it. But my heart was always not in selling the product. My heart was always in teaching people the skills and then saying, oh, by the way, here's the best products that I use in order for you to have success. So that's how I did business and marketing. I did it from the back end instead of from the front end. I didn't learn how to do marketing from any schools, books, or anything.
Well, and I think some of that marketing is so passé at this point. You know, people
Mhm.
really want authentic, and you've been doing it the whole time. So you were ahead of the curve.
Girl, I don't know if you know, there's a book that I used to read to my children, and it was a penguin book, and I think it was called I Gotta Be Me. And it was a book where all the penguins were all walking in line, but there was one penguin who loved to wear Hawaiian shirts, right? And so he would wear his Hawaiian shirt and he'd be in with the penguins and he'd be doing this Hawaiian shirt and he'd be dancing. And he was always at the end of the line. And it was just called, I think it was called I Gotta Be Me. I read that to my kids every night just to teach them authenticity. That was what was important to me, authenticity, because I literally do not know how to be anybody but me. And in the times in the past, because trust me, when we were in the corporate world and we had to go to Hobby Lobby and we had to go to Michael's and we had to have these sales meetings and we had to do all of that stuff, and I had to be the pinpoint of that, and I had to put on the suit, I tried to put that mask on, and I did it. I mean, I did it successfully. And in my heart of hearts, I felt so inauthentic. It felt like such a fraud because it wasn't who I am. And so, and even with that, you know, I would have people tell me, they're like, well, you don't talk like a corporate person. You don't talk like that. And I'm like, I don't know how to talk any other differently.
I
So,
don't know
you
how to
know,
talk corporate.
I don't know how to do this. I'm the little penguin wearing the aloha shirt. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just, that's me. There's nothing else you can do.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That's kind of, I always say I'm a hack. I'm a hack
Mhm.
at most of the jobs that I've had. It's like, I can do the business, I can do the corporate, I can do the executive role to a point, but it's
Mhm.
not my comfort zone. It's really not. It's really
Yeah.
not. And
Yeah.
and I'm with you, and I'm glad to be able to share this and have you share it, me share it. Like I'm not an expert. I'm not trained in the fine arts. I am not
Mhm.
trained as an artist. I don't even have, I have some metalsmith certificates and things and, courses I've done, but most of what I've done, I've just kind of done. And I, I'm more about the teaching. So when I'm teaching, it's more about the technique and the products and the how and the why and the protect yourself angle. And then
Mhm.
here, take this information and you go do what you want to do with it. Like, don't just
Mhm.
copy this because this is actually not even that pretty. Like, go make something nice.
Yeah.
This is just how you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. I have to tell you though, I did find in over the years of teaching, particularly at the Beat and Button shows and the Tucson shows, the larger shows, like I would have students come in and their creativity was off the charts. They were way better artists than I was, like way better. Their jewelry with it, they would walk in with like far outdid mine. Like it was amazing. And I remember standing there being like, what in the world are these people spending money with me? Like they've got it in spades. And the one thing that I heard over and over again was again the practical piece of it. You know,
Mhm,
I taught them, how do you safely use a torch?
mhm.
How do you make sure that you don't get metal poisoning? How do you use these chemicals in a way that is not going to harm your body? So I was very, even like I said, I'm the most practical woo you ever find. It's like I was very practical in all of my teaching, and I wanted to make sure they did that. And then I think the other difference is, and I think the thing that was very helpful that I hear in you that I resonate with is we really were teaching to give it all away, and we didn't hold anything back. And we wanted to make sure that anybody that was with us soared. And so we didn't have any ego attached to it. We really didn't have, you know, we just did our job, and we did it to the best of our abilities, and we did it with the highest intention of success for those who are around. And I learned that there are really amazing artists and there are really amazing teachers. And sometimes the best artists aren't the best teachers. And sometimes the best teachers aren't the best artists. You know, it is a very rare combination to have those incredible design skills, that incredible, you know, fine art aesthetic with very practical down to earth teaching skills. So
Mhm.
that is a niche, and very few people in all the years I've been doing it, there's very few people that I found that were able to successfully do both. So I'm like you. I fell into the category of I'm a self-taught artist. You know, my degree was in writing, self-taught artist. I say I learned at the feet of the masters because I learned from other people. I took classes, you know, learned from, you know, quickly found out the great teachers as opposed to the great artists, and just did it. Just did it. I'll tell you the thing about art, my friend. When it comes to art, you have to do it. You can't not do it. And you like, and you're not going to be Picasso when you start. You're going to make finger paints, right? You know, when you start learning how to use wire working tools, you're going to be all thumbs. Like, you're going to start at the beginning, and then you're going to do it, and you're going to get better at it. So, you know, it's like, I don't know anybody that came in as a natural born, you know, like masterpiece. Like, even Picasso had to start somewhere. So,
Somewhere.
you know, yeah, action is the most important piece.
I think the best advice at the start of a class that I've heard is, "Oh, the Smithsonian called. They're not interested in anybody's work anymore right now. They're full. So just have a
Hmm.
good time today, people. Let's just have fun."
That's good. That's what I love. I decided I was going to, for a while there, I was like, I'm not calling anything a workshop. I'm calling it a play shop. You know, I was like, I'm
Oh,
done with it. Work is work. Play is fun.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I've decided that everything's going to be play shops. And so
I
that's
love
part of
it.
my other thing, is that I try to bring fun and creativity and joy, like joy, into everything I do. And so I created this last year. I created my own card deck. I have my own Oracle card deck, and I just created that, and I sucked it up, Buttercup. I actually did all of my own drawings, which I am not a good drawer, right? I'm not that kind of an artist. I couldn't call myself an artist for a long time, because I, just like you said, I couldn't draw, right? And so, but I went in and I did all of my own drawings, and I did my own Oracle card deck, and I self-published it. And, you know, and I just did it. I put it out there. I self-published. I did 100 of them, and, you know, I did it, got it out right before Thanksgiving. And I literally have like 10 of them left. It's time to to redo it. So, so that's what I'm saying. It's like, you have an idea, you just have to be brave. You just have to do it. And then the next step is to find a way to literally put your money where your mouth is.
And what is it? Just tell me more about this deck. So
Hmm.
what is an Oracle deck? Like, let's share that with everybody so we can get those 10 sold, and maybe the next round can go.
Yeah.
Because
So
I've
an
seen them. They're
oracle,
beautiful. You package them
well,
beautifully. The drawings,
yeah.
I don't care what you say, you can draw. And I love how you put them together. It's a beautiful deck.
Yeah. So an oracle deck has different names. They can be affirmation decks, which just means positive affirmations. You know, it's those statements of empowerment. That's an affirmation deck. There's sometimes they're called wisdom decks, which is, there's a way for it. Wisdom deck. That's a good term. That's not woo, right? Oracle deck is kind of the official term. Most people know about tarot cards, because tarot
Mhm.
cards have been around forever. Now, tarot deck is very specific. It's 78 cards. There's major arcana, minor arcana. It's an entire field of study in order to learn how to become a tarot card reader. Now, Oracle card decks are just simple. They're just like, I have a question. I want to touch into my intuitive self, or my higher knowing, my higher self. I believe we all have higher selves, right? I call that our soul self. And I'm just like, I'm a little confused. Life is getting me down today. I have a decision I have to make. I don't know where to go. I'm just confused. So one of the things is our unconscious mind, or our subconscious mind. This is psychology. It works in symbols. It remembers everything. It is like a supercomputer. It's how we dream at night. Artists are really good about getting involved with their unconscious mind. So our unconscious mind, all of that stuff bubbles up to the surface. And all of our knowing is actually in our unconscious mind and our higher selves. It's just our thinking brain gets in the way, right? That loop thing. So an oracle card deck allows you to get your thinking brain out of the way to take a little nap, and then use the symbol, metaphor, storytelling, art, all of those things that we do as artists. Ask a question, and then when you pull the card, you get wisdom that taps into your higher self and your unconscious mind, that brings it to your conscious mind, so you have a deeper knowing of yourself and possibly what you're supposed to do next.
Hmm.
So that's what an oracle card deck is. And that's why it works, because it touches in with your unconscious mind, your soul self, in addition to your thinking mind.
Love it. Love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And is that part of how your business name came about, Solstor Magic?
Solstor Magic. Yeah. So how I got Solstor Magic was, Solstor Magic is my pandemic pivot. We all had to do a pandemic pivot, right? I teach in the south of France every year. I do art retreats in the south of France. And I had 2 weeks booked up in the south of France. I had full students, and then COVID hit. Now I do it all. I'm not using a organizer. I'm the organizer. I'm the teacher. I'm all of that. So that's my France retreat. So, and again, my business background comes into that as well, to be able to handle and do all of those things. So COVID hit, and obviously we weren't going to be doing any traveling for a while. I did the way I talk to my team, at least I can talk to them all the time now, but the way I developed it is I do meditation. I get my mind nice and quiet. I get into meditation that allows me to hear, right? It gets that thinking brain, the laundry list. I got to do things, raising my kid, all of those busy mind things that we do. So I go into meditation that allows me to get quiet, and then that allows me to hear my guides and angels, my team. So I pretty much heard that was like, give all the money back. Give it all back. You're not going anywhere. This is a minimum year, most likely 2 years. That's pretty much what I heard on March 15th of 2020. So, and of course I didn't say anything because we were all in the midst of like fear, and I didn't even know what it was. I was just trying to get answers. And what I heard at that point, so I was like, okay, so I had some expenses. I had to keep some of it because there were some vendors that were not refunding, but I gave back most of it, and, whatever I could, I just let it go. And then, shed some tears, freaked out. What am I going to do? This was a whole year's worth of work gone. It's like, it's all gone. And then I went into meditation again. And what I really heard in my meditation was, it's go time. It's time for you to come out. It's time for you to let the world know that you're an intuitive. And it is time for you to help people in a different way. And so it's time for you to open up your intuitive business. And so I actually worked with a friend of mine who was a therapist and then a mixed media artist and instructor, and then opened her own successful intuitive business. And I reached out to her and said, girl, you got to help me. I need some help. So I paid for her to be my coach for a month. She helped me get going and get moving. We brainstormed. We kind of came up with Solstor magic. We just had a brainstorming session, put that together. And I'm like, well, that's weird and wonderful. Let me just take that because I love weird and wonderful. And I literally on May 1st built my website and opened it up and was ready to do intuitive readings, and also distance Reiki for people because I do Reiki, and a lot of people were no longer able to get to their chiropractors, and they weren't able to get to their, their massage therapist and a lot of those kind of things. And so I was like, okay, I do energy work. Let me do some energy work. So when I do my Reiki, that's not intuitive, that's body work, right? But it's using the quantum field. So I opened it up with intuitive readings and Reiki, and I pretty much let the art just kind of settle down during COVID, and just kind of focused on that business. Excuse me. And but I also had this idea at that time that when the world opened back up, I wanted to do something called Art Plus Spirit. And I wanted to merge these two things together. I was kind of tired of being the intuitive in the background and the artist in the foreground. And then I flopped it. So now I'm the intuitive in the foreground and the artist in the background. And now I'm like, no, I'm all of those things. Let me figure out a way to merge it together. So that's what Solstor Magic is. And now 2024 is really making sure I return to art, coming back on, and I'm finally ready to take my best classes that I taught, those workshops in person over the years, and I'm finally ready to film them and get them done. But I wasn't ready at the time when the pandemic hit. Most artists just went online. They just took their art and went online and started offering classes online. And that wasn't my path. And so now I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball, and yet this is the way of the world. We are going to be doing hybrid and in person. I believe probably this is our new normal. So I actually don't think I'm behind. I think this is the way we're going to be doing it. I think we're mostly going to be communicating online, and then we will be getting to get together in person as we can and when we can.
And I think there's a good balance of both. And I think for as hard as the pandemic was on our world, it did bring about some change that has been beneficial, where we can be more stable and accepting of digital learning. Where before even when in the publishing field, as you know, it was hard to commit to digital learning because of the internet speed. People didn't want to do Zoom, like Zoom. What's Zoom? And the pandemic really forced people. If you want to still connect, you've got to figure it out. Now you're making a hard choice, and they made the choice, and it really opened up that pathway. So I'm with you. I don't think you're behind at all. I think there were people who went in front of us, in front of you, but it doesn't mean that the door is closed. I think the door is wide open. Digital learning is the statistics behind that are staggering. And it's because of the pandemic. It really, it sped things up. And so you're right on time.
That's awesome. Well, we are creatures of habit, human beings. If there's anything I learned with my psychology background and my psychology learning, and I actually have some certifications now where I went in during COVID too, and I started studying neurolinguistic programming, mental emotional release, and hypnotherapy. So I now have those certifications on my wall, and I'm certified through the Association of Integrative Psychology in order to help people holistically. So I'm not a therapist, but I'm allowed, I am an integrative, be able to help people work through things. Because during the pandemic, even with angels and guides, even with my knowledge and readings, people were coming in with some trauma. They were coming in with a lot of things. And I was like, oh goodness, I have got to find a way to help my people. So I started this, the thing about me is that because I get the intuitive hit, I feel it, I know that I'm supposed to do something. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know where I'm supposed to go, but I do know that I'm supposed to move. So I'm actually very good about pivoting. So even though we're creatures of habit, I have pretty much trained myself that comfort is the opposite of my growth. So in order for me to grow and change and learn, I must be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So I'm constantly moving into that. Back to the learning style, though, is that, we are creatures of habit, and we were like dinosaurs. We're like little T-Rexes running around, and the meteors come in, and we're either going to get hit by the meteor or we're going to figure this tech stuff out, for goodness sakes. We're going to figure out what a Zoom is. I mean, I remember our first family in 2020, our family Thanksgiving Zoom. I wish we would have recorded it at the time. It was a hot mess. People are like, are you there? Are you there? Are you there? Looking up grandma's nose, it was ridiculous. And yet we figured it out. So, yeah.
Yep. And so there's a lot more grace. There's a lot more grace. I'm sorry. There's a lot more grace in the, are you there? What happened? My internet working? Where I think before people expected highly polished, finely published digital media. Like you had to be on point, makeup perfect, hair perfect, nails perfect. And now they're like, that's so not real. And so we're also much more accepting of an authentic perspective and authentic presentation. You drop something, you knock something over, the computer stops. Like people are so much more tolerant of some of those guffaws, because they're still going to happen. I mean, we're human. We're,
absolutely. And that's where I think there's no greater time than now to embrace authenticity, right? There really isn't. It's like, I've been the penguin in the Hawaiian shirt forever. So now it's like, let me just, instead of being in the back, let me move to the front and lead the way and put penguin shirts on, put aloha shirts on everybody else, because that's where we're all heading to. Authenticity, yes, we still face the perfect social media and we face the perfect stuff and the perfect everything. And it's like, and yet it's not real. And, and again, with AI, with other stuff that's coming up, I think reality, like what is real and what is reality, is going to become even more precious and cherished, So, and then also going with the virtual versus in life, I also think the pandemic taught us to be so grateful of when we get to be together. So I think it took art retreats to an entirely new level. Tucson, which you're going to be going to, right? What we still, Tucson still exists, the Gem and Mineral Show. The fact that we get to meet and hug each other, see each other, and still have real life shows. The fact that my France retreats are back online, although in a totally different way, people get to travel and have that amazing fairy tale. It is a French fairy tale. You walk out, you get on the plane, I take you to this place, and it is literally living a French movie set. I think that people loved it before, but now there is a deeper appreciation to it because we went through and survived the pandemic, that I think that we are in a much, not everybody, and not a lot of people, a lot of us are in much better state of gratitude. And gratitude is what helps us live longer, healthier lives. So, so the pandemic was awful in a lot of ways. And like everything else, there's two sides to the coin. And I'm grateful for the things that I learned. I'm grateful for the moment to stop. I'm grateful to be able to pivot. I'm grateful for understanding and knowing the things that I know, and for it to be a great reset for me.
And I think that's fair. A reset, not to change the subject, because one, I agree with you 100%. In person is so valuable, and it is something to truly treasure. But we also need to do it. The benefit of being together. I think we forgot how to be human in person.
Yes.
And, thinking leading up to Tucson, I'm like, wait, I actually have to figure out what pants am I wearing? Because most people just see at the top.
I know.
Oh, wait, I actually have to wear shoes.
I have to pull out shoes. Like shoes. What are those? Exactly. I have the best collection of slippers. Like, you wouldn't believe my slippers. I'm even doing this in slippers, right? So it's like, oh no, shoes.
Exactly, the shoes. So but the benefit of it is so overwhelming. To the point of the getting to the reset piece. It's also important to remember to reset, because I feel that in person, where maybe it's my age, maybe I'm just showing my age, but I think it's important to reset and really take the time when you've been in person, because the amount of energy it takes to be in person is something you will feel if you haven't been in person with people in a long time.
Absolutely.
Right. And what advice do you have for that? Because it's not everybody is in a meditative practice or really able to slow down enough, because we're working, or we've got all these other commitments and children and pets and people who need our attention. We don't really take care of ourselves. So what would be your recommendation on a reset? And especially after being in person at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things for in person well, first of all, let me go back a little bit. There were some memes going around during the pandemic that I loved. And it was one about, extroverts are like, the sky is falling. And introverts are like, oh, I've been preparing for this my whole life. Introverts love it, so that was really it. And I'm very social, and yet I am an introvert. Like, I was raised that way as a child, right? It was like, it was me and my imagination. I'm still comfortable. Like, when people say they're bored, I don't understand that. I'm never bored. I always have so many art projects and so many things and so much stuff I want to do and create. So there is that. So, and I think introverts got very comfortable during the pandemic. I think it was kind of lovely for us, So now it's time to join the real world introverts. Empaths, it's time to join the real world. My creatives, healers, and feelers, come on, you guys, put on your big girl panties, put on your nice pants, put shoes on, and let's get back into the world, and know that it's going to be a little uncomfortable, and it's going to be a little fearful, and COVID hasn't gone away. It's still there, all of that kind of stuff to do. And yet it's really time to get back to a non-digital life. Like, we really need to get back into person, and we really need to have human connection. We need to, there was people that lived alone. I have a lot of friends of mine that are, again, showing our age, right? They're single, they're divorced, their kids are raised and gone, they're home. They got touch starved when they were, they just were, it was a lot. So it really is time to be back. So that's the one thing I want to say. The second part of your question was taking care of ourselves. How do we take care of ourselves? So my practice, my meditative practice, my healthy practice, my things I do, this came to me out of necessity. I had health challenges that were happening to me that I literally was like, I have to change and take care of me and get my health back in better balance, or this is getting to a critical stage where it could really affect my health. And possibly my blood pressure was so high that it could stroke out. I got to the point to where I couldn't ignore it anymore. So I was forced with having to slow down. I was forced with having to start exercising, lose weight, all of those other kind of things, start this transformative journey that I had to do. I don't recommend it doing that way. I really recommend actually doing it before you get faced with something that says you have to do it. It's easier, right? It's less emotionally draining for you. And I think that, as particularly women, business owners, makers, family, caregivers, businesses still having corporate jobs where layoffs happened or attrition happened and they're not bringing people back on. There's a lot of stress in the world today. So my thing is, with everything else, my grandmother used to say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So it really is, that old sayings really is the best. We pick one thing. You just pick one thing to take care of yourself. If a bubble bath is it, then a bubble bath once a week is it. If putting your phone on do not disturb at lunchtime for an hour, and actually taking an hour to yourself for lunch and not being on your phone, not checking your email, going for a walk, sitting in the sunshine, whatever it is, just pick one thing and do it. Because if there's anything I learned about motivation and action, is the action piece is the important piece. We need to change our thinking. We need to change our behaviors. And then we need to take action to create new habits, healthier habits, so we can get to a more empowered state. And it really is a process.
And I think it takes practice. Would you agree with that? It's something
Absolutely.
that you have to get good at.
You got to do it. It's just like starting out with those pliers, right? So you start out with the pliers, you're out of the state. Self-care is no different than putting a pair of pliers in your hand when you've never worked jewelry in your life. Taking a bubble bath once a week and telling everybody else, like, leave your phone out and go take a bubble bath and then take it for an hour for yourself. Or if you love to read, looking at your schedule and literally putting a notification in your phone that says, I'm going to read for an hour this week, and everybody else, you're not allowed to come find me unless there's blood, right? Like, that's kind of what it is. As women, we have to set boundaries for ourselves. Unfortunately, cultural conditioning, particularly for women, has really taught us to put ourselves at the bottom of the needs barrel, and really has not taught ourselves to be able to set boundaries in a healthy, loving, and firm way. And so that is a skill to practice. I have really learned to be a very good boundary queen. And even with as good as I've gotten setting that, I still have moments of guilt when I say no. When somebody else's yes is higher and more firm than my no, I have to get my no to be equally firm. And it takes practice. It's hard. None of the stuff. Here's the thing about life. It's not easy, and it's messy, and it's worth it. Because what's the alternative? Right?
No, not fun.
Yeah. It's not fun. So, and if you're going to be living every single day, why not try to live to your best and highest good every day? And you're going to fall flat on your face some days. I fall flat on my face, and I've just got a really good set of tools now that helps me, figure out what I'm doing and get up and move ahead, because my belief is that life is beautiful.
Fall flat on your face. I think that's come up in every episode, and
right?
It's not me saying it. My guest has said it, because I think it is something that holds us back from trying something. Well, what if I fall flat on my face? Well, so then you just get up and try again. But there's this fear
of failure.
And fear of failure. Mm-hmm. It's real, and it holds so many people back. I'm sure it's held me back.
It's held me back. Yeah. The amount of fail when I was doing the business things, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I remember we would have a big meeting. We had to fly and we had to go make presentation for an entire line, all of that kind of stuff. I couldn't sleep at night. I would wake up in the morning, just like practicing my presentation over and over in head. And I felt I had imposter syndrome terribly. I was like, I don't have a business degree. I don't have a marketing degree. It was the self-doubt and the fear was palpable, and yet I had a meeting the next morning, and there was no, it was like, I had to do it. It was like that train was coming, and it was either going to flatten me or I was going to hop on board. But either way, I signed up for the train and it was coming.
Right. Well, that's the other thing. It's like you signed up for it and you just had to then just face the music.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard.
One of my favorite things in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, in my trainings and my certifications, there's things called presuppositions. It just means presupposition means you presume these things to be real. And one of the ones that helped me out so much is there is no failure, there is only feedback. And that really helped me so much, because the thing is, there is no failure. if you fall flat on your face, yeah, you got to get up and get going, but it's just feedback. You know what I mean? You learn something on that fall down. You learn something. You're doing this podcast and you're learning every podcast you do. I'm on here as a guest and I'm learning as we're doing it. So we're doing it and we are learning, and then we will have a mindset for excellence and success, which means we will take that feedback, and we will go forward. And I'll tell you, the hard part in the feedback is taking it as just, it is what it is, and not allowing the shame and the guilt and all of that to come and overtake you. So you said before, give us grace. So as we're trying and learning and doing, we need to understand there's no failure, there's only feedback. And, those places where we misstep or we don't do it right, give ourselves grace because we're learning and changing and growing.
And it's not the end of the world.
No, that's my favorite thing about art. It's like, I'm not a heart surgeon. Like if I make a mistake as a heart surgeon, boom, somebody's dead, right? I'm like, if I make a mistake on a painting or a piece of jewelry or a piece of art, so what? That's why I love mixed media, because I'm like, you can cover it up. It's like, nobody's going to die if my art isn't perfect, right? Nobody's going to die. And that is like, that gives me such a sense of freedom. It's like, it's just, and it's allowed my art to be so much more loose and expressionist and free, because I tell myself when I make a mistake and I'm like, or I don't like it, I'm like, whatever, nobody died. Right. And I know it's an extreme, and yet it's an extreme that makes me laugh. It's extreme that makes my nervous system calm down. It allows the inner critic to silence itself, or at least stop yelling. And it allows me to move forward playfully and joyfully. And what I've learned about my own artistic experience is when I imbue anything I create handmade with enthusiasm, joy, and love, the people who are meant to receive it and feel it the way I intended it to be. And those who are going to be judgmental, those who are going to be critics, those who are going to tell me it's bad, guess what? They're not my people. Step off my train and go move on, because I'm making this for me and I'm making it for my people.
That is so empowering, Jen. Just those words alone, it gives you permission to just step out of your own way and reframe what you're thinking and reframe why you're doing what you're doing, because we're here to make something that we want. And it may never go anywhere. It may not go on the refrigerator, and that's okay. You're letting something out, you're putting something down, and you're giving yourself a chance to express, but it's for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And another thing I kind of want to say about the pandemic, and cultural conditioning, right? Cultural conditioning is what the world is saying. That's the they say, right? So that they say, that's cultural conditioning. That is the prevalent opinions of what's going on in the world. And usually it's the loudest opinions of what's going on into the world. And then it's what keeps happening. These statements become beliefs, right? So they become beliefs over time, and then they limit us. So one of the things the pandemic did is, which I think was awful, was essential workers, right? So essential, this name essential workers. I think that was a cultural conditioning that set artists back for a little bit. Like, I think that we're still dealing with it. It's just one more layer coming in that's telling us that artists were not important, right? And so we're not as important. Now, I wouldn't say that when I went back to that surgeon, right, as a heart doctor, I'm not going to say that I'm not as important as a heart doctor because I'm not working on somebody's heart. That's not my chosen profession. That's not what I'm good at, right? But I wouldn't say that I'm not essential to the world. I still am essential. Artists and creatives and healers and feelers and intuitives and dancers. And we are essential because we are the things that bring beauty and meaning to the world. We are the things that bring questions and answers to the world. If the world was only based on those people who were, doctors and lawyers and, all of that kind of stuff, there'd be no color. There would be no beauty. Now I'm going to go back to, I don't want to trigger anybody, because I did have lawyers in my classes. I did have doctors. I did have nurses. I had all professions in my classes. But again, they front faced as those things. And then art was their passion and their creativity. So I'm not trying to label that as wrong. All I'm really trying to say is art is essential. Makers are essential, and what we do is essential. And we have been conditionally programmed to say, oh, somebody says that's beautiful, that's great. And you say, oh, that little thing, I just doodled that. I just did that. I just painted that. Oh, I just, and it's like, oh man, stop with the just. Let's just get rid of that from our language, because that minimizes and mitigates who we are. And as makers, we are powerful. As healers, we are powerful. As feelers, we are powerful. And that's my message. We're just powerful. Like, own it.
Just own it.
Just own it. Just
Love
do it. Right?
Yeah. Just do it. We'll steal that. We'll steal that phrase. Just do it. Because, and you have to start somewhere. So no matter where you are in your journey, just start, just make, just create, just have fun, bring color, spread joy. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. My Facebook post, my bio and my Facebook post, it's like it used to say the same boring stuff. And I think in 2018 or 2017, I changed it. And it says, living my life in color, kindness, compassion, with angels and guides. And it's like, that's my bio these days. And I'm like, people look at that and they're just like, what is this woman talking about? And that's okay, because guess what? It made them stop scrolling for a minute to read it. And then it made them look at that and go like, okay. And then again, the judgment, some people are like, she is a whack job. Right. And then other people are like, oh, that's cool. Maybe I could change my bio, and it's like, I want the people who are like, oh, I like that. Let that spark something in me so I can do something differently. I can live creatively. I can say who I am in a different way, So, and again, there's a quote that I love, and it says, we are all walking each other home. And it's one of my most favorite quotes. And that's really what we are doing. I think it's a Hafiz quote. It is, we are all walking each other home. It could be Ram Dass. I don't know. I'd have to look that up, but the quote's important. The quote is, we are all walking each other home. So the thing is that if we want to be of service, we've got to hold out our hand to the person who's behind us, that maybe we have a little bit more experience. We don't have to be brilliant at it. We just have to be 1 or 2 steps ahead in order to hold our hand back and just hold our hand so the other person can move the way. And I think in our world right now, where COVID did teach people to be more impatient and more inconsiderate, and we've lost some compassion, and we've lost some learning. And those essential workers, those people that were service, that are essential, and we learned that those minimum wage jobs are as essential as doctors and lawyers because we need them. It's really a time to make sure that we have compassion and grace for ourselves and for them. So, we're human beings. We're all essential.
All right.
Yeah.
I think I don't want to push you to say any more. I think you've covered everything so well, and you've given us so much to talk about and think about, and so many pieces of knowledge and understanding and caring and kindness that, I could listen to this over and over and over again and get a new takeaway. So unless there's more you want to share, because I certainly don't want to stop you from giving and making sure that you have what you want to say. But
no, I appreciate that. I had no idea where this was going to take us. And I just wanted to have the little meandering journey with you in the walk. So, the only thing I would love to say is that if you have anybody on here who doesn't know me, my website, I have my website, which will be in your show notes. I have a YouTube channel. I'm trying to get more people. I have a very low subscribers. So it's like, if anybody wants to help me out and do that, I would love the follow. Right now, I love sharing the message, and I just need a little bit of help to get that message out there a little bit more. If anybody's interested, we didn't get a chance to talk about Solstor and retreats, but that is my retreats in the south of France. And I did make my business. I did do another leap in my business where I actually now have 3 retreats where I'm the organizer of it. And I have invited guest artists to come who are world-class instructors. So I've got 3 of them coming up in June this year. And for my jewelry making peeps, we have Kate Richburg, who is one of my most favorite people in life. And she is the rare combination of talent and teaching. Like, she's got that piece in between there. She is amazing. So, so their spots are pretty much filled. We have just a few spaces open, but if anybody really wants to come hang out and talk art plus spirit in this French village, you go to my website and find me and just hang with me. Please be part of my community. And the way I'm talking today is the way I live my life. Again, I'm the penguin in the aloha shirt. I am exactly the same on the microphone, on camera, as I am at home. So if you like it, that's what you're going to get.
Every day, straight up.
Every day, straight up. You're going to get the truth. You're going to get practical woo, and you're going to get, you're going to get a lot of stuff, but ultimately you're going to get someone who actually really cares about holding your hand and walking you home. That's what I do.
That is what you do. And that is who you are every day. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
All right, Jen. Well, and we will have everything, as she mentioned, we will have everything in the show notes, so you will be able to find her. We will all follow you and join you on your newsletter journey and all of the things that you're sharing, because you have so much wisdom and so much kindness and grace to offer us that we all deserve to have a little bit of you in our lives. So we will make sure that's easily accessible. So. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Jen. Really, truly, thank you. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. It's such a pleasure for me to be able to have the privilege of meeting people like Jen along my creative journey. And it's a privilege for me to bring her to you. And I hope that you've enjoyed this episode and that you have some amazing takeaways, as I know I do. And so that's a wrap on another episode of Heart and Hands of a Maker. It's been so wonderful sharing this time with you. Thank you for tuning in. And if you want more, be sure to head over to tamarahonaman.com/podcast for today's show notes and links to make it easy for you to be able to listen, as well as to find Jen. And to be sure you never miss an episode while you're there listening to us, please be sure to follow or like whatever your subscription platform offers you. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.